Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
Before we get into today's episode, just a disclaimer. The victim in this case is 12 years old. As always, I won't go into any detail that's not necessary to understand the dynamics of the case, but listener discretion is advised. A 12-year-old girl who was at home alone sent a series of text messages to her mom while her mom was at work. The first text was at 4:15 p.m. The second was 4 minutes later at 4:19 p.m. Usually, while Patricia Velasquez is at work, her children don't call or text. They know mom is busy. But based on the messages 12-year-old Joanna Arteaga sent on the afternoon of Thursday, August 10th, 2017, she was spooked and wanted to speak with her mom. Patricia didn't see the text messages for over 40 minutes or so. When she did, she wrote back. Although Joanna didn't respond, Patricia had no idea there was any reason to worry. She returned home with her 2 other children, roughly 2 hours after Joanna's last text. After opening the front door, her oldest daughter, Jocelyn, went to the room she shared with Joanna. Patricia and her son went to theirs. Immediately, she heard Jocelyn yell that something was wrong with Joanna. Here's Patricia while she's on the stand, explaining what happened. You'll hear her speak in Spanish first, and then a translator translates to English.
Bueno, yo corrí, caminé rápido. I ran, I walked fast. Gritando, Joanna, Joanna. Screaming, Joanna, Joanna. Llegué al cuarto. I arrived to the room. Jocelyn estaba cerca de la puerta. Jocelyn was near the door. Y yo entré al cuarto. And I entered the room. Vi a Joanna tirada. And I saw Joanna on the ground. Le dije a Jocelyn, salte y llama al 911. And I told Jocelyn, go out, call 911.
A yellow taekwondo belt had been knotted around the young girl's neck. Her pajama pants and underwear had been pulled partly down. Jocelyn called 911. She told the operator her sister had been home alone and that someone had killed her. I don't know what to do, she said. When police began their investigation, they zoned in on something Joanna had said in one of those text messages she sent to her mom. A clue, perhaps, of who had done this to her. And while detectives talked to witnesses and neighbors, evidence from the scene was sent to the lab for processing. The evidence included DNA from Joanna's body and from what investigators believed to be the point of entry and exit for the killer, the back bathroom window. The DNA came back with hits and matches within the system. In this case, what those hits and matches meant ultimately depended on whether you were on the prosecution or the defense team. But neither side would dispute that one man's DNA was present on the victim and on the window. They just disagreed on how it got there. While the prosecution told the jury they had enough evidence to convict their suspect, the defense said the state of Tennessee had the wrong man. In today's episode, the tragic murder of a young girl. Police make an arrest, but do they have the right guy? This is Jillian, and in partnership with Law and Crime, you are listening to Court Junkie, episode 157. Patricia Velasquez had been an architect when she lived in Mexico, before moving to the United States with her family. She had 3 children, Jocelyn, Joanna, and Oscar, with her husband, Marlon Artiega. Patricia told the court she and Marlon were no longer together. In 2015, the family moved to a trailer in Nashville, Tennessee. The trailer home was located on Lot C2 in the Hillview Acres mobile home park. During the court proceedings, the move was described as quick, but the reason was never given. Patricia and her 3 children made it their home. The 2 girls, 10 and 12 when they moved in, shared a room, and Patricia shared her room with Oscar. Jocelyn told the jury that their room was, quote, the messiest room you've ever seen. She said there were clothes everywhere and that you couldn't step anywhere without something being below you. Their mom would always get on them about that, she said. The kids stayed busy with school and taekwondo. Her oldest daughter, Jocelyn, also attended a police camp. In July of 2017, Patricia had just started working for a dry cleaner. She gave the children strict instructions on how to stay safe when she wasn't home.
What were your rules for when you were not at home?
¿Cuáles eran sus reglas para cuando usted no estaba en la casa?
No abrir la puerta.
Not open the door.
No tratar de no hacer ruido.
To try to not make any noises.
Si escuchaban que alguien llegara a tocar la puerta, no caminar por la traila.
If they hear that somebody is coming to knock on the door,
no hablar a nadie.
They should not walk around the trailer and
no hablar, no contestar.
And not answer to anybody, not to talk to anybody.
Did you even have instructions about whether or not they were to make noise taking a shower?
Usted tenía, de hecho, instrucciones, por ejemplo, de no hacer ruido cuando se bañaban en la ducha.
De hecho, les prohibía que se bañaran cuando yo no estaba porque tenía miedo que se pudieran caer en la tina de baño.
In fact, I actually prohibited them to take a shower when I wasn't home because I was afraid that they would fall in the bathtub.
Were your children allowed to play outside?
¿Esos niños tenían permitido jugar afuera?
Solos, no.
Not by themselves.
Her children weren't allowed outside unless she was home. They weren't to open the door for anyone. And if someone were to come to the house, they should be quiet so as not to alert the person that someone was there. The overly cautious mother also didn't want her children to shower when she wasn't home, for fear they could be injured by a slip or a fall, and she wouldn't be there. School was ready to start back up that August. Joanna went to a charter school while her siblings attended a metro school. But Joanna had injured her ankle shortly before the start of school. According to Jocelyn, their family had gone to the rolling rink and someone had accidentally pushed her, causing her to fall. She had to use crutches to move around, and it was difficult for her. Joanna asked her mom if she could stay home from school that first day, August 10th. Her mother allowed it. Her siblings went to school and Patricia got to spend some time with Joanna before she had to go to work. She had fixed her daughter her favorite food, sushi, then helped her back to her room. The room was cluttered with clothes. Patricia didn't want Joanna to really be mobile while she was gone, so it made sense for her to be in her bedroom with her things. Patricia left for work at the dry cleaners around noon. Joanna was able to text her mom through Google Hangouts while she was at work. But Patricia didn't expect to hear from her while she was working. Her job didn't look favorably at personal phone calls. But on that afternoon, August 10th, something unusual happened, and Joanna wanted her mother to know. She texted her mom in Spanish, quote, "Mom, someone's knocking at the door." Patricia didn't see the text. Joanna sent 2 more texts. One said, "He's already gone." The next said, "I think it was the man who cuts the yard." Patricia saw the texts about 40 minutes after they were sent. She was picking Oscar up from school. Joanna had also tried to call her mother in between the texts. When Patricia finally texted back, she told her not to make any noise.
And the last message you received from her indicated that whoever was at the door had left.
Y el último mensaje que usted recibió de ella indicaba que la persona que estaba a la puerta ya se había ido.
De acuerdo al mensaje, sí.
According to the message, yes.
Patricia didn't hear from Joanna again. She arrived home with Jocelyn and Oscar around 6:30 that evening. She used her key to open the front door. Jocelyn went towards her room, and Patricia and Oscar went the opposite way. From the other end of the home, Patricia heard Jocelyn yell, "Mom, something's happened to Joanna." She ran to her daughter's room and saw her daughter. She told Jocelyn to call 911. Meanwhile, Patricia tried to help Joanna. Although she noted that her daughter was cool to the touch, she still followed the operator's directions. She removed the yellow taekwondo belt from around Joanna's neck. It had been knotted twice. Patricia broke down on the stand when describing the ways she tried to help her daughter. At one point, she left the room to get tissues. She wanted to clean the blood from her ears and mouth. But as hard as she tried, Joanna was already dead. Joanna's body showed signs of attempted sexual assault. Her pajama pants and underwear had been pulled down. Her autopsy, however, couldn't confirm if an assault had happened. Joanna had been strangled with the yellow taekwondo belt. There was also an injury to her head that had caused bleeding in her scalp. A shoe print was found on her head. When the police arrived, they began to take in as much evidence as they could. Patricia and her kids gave shoe prints, DNA, fingerprints, whatever was necessary to help with the case. Investigators completely took over the scene. Patricia told the court that her family couldn't return for nearly a month. Investigators canvassed the neighborhood and took a close look at who had been cutting the grass at the Velasquez trailer. When the family first moved to Hillview Acres Mobile Home Park, the manager, Anthony Hinton, mowed their lawn.
Did you sometimes mow the lawn at Lot C2?
Yes, when they come in and done their lot lease agreement, they asked me if who maintained the lawns, and they asked me if I would mind doing it for a few weeks until they could get a mower or make other arrangements.
And so that would be right after they moved in,
right?
2 years prior.
Excuse me?
2 years prior to the 2017 that we're talking about when they moved in, or around there.
From the time that they had moved in until a few weeks.
Okay. So after
prior
that.
to them leaving.
But most recently, a neighbor had been cutting their grass. 45-year-old Roy Coons Jr. and his father did work around the mobile home park. He had been cutting the grass for the family for the last 3 months.
How long did Roy Coons Jr. cut your yard?
¿Por cuánto tiempo Roy Coons Jr. cortó su grama?
Pienso que fue como por como por 2 meses y medio.
I think it was like 2.5 months.
And how would you pay him? When would you pay him?
¿Y cómo le pagaba o cuándo le pagaba?
Él me ofreció una oferta que dijo que eran 4 cortadas de yarda por $30.
He made me an offer. He said it would be 4 cuts for $30.
When investigators spoke with Roy Coons Jr., he told them he had been in and out all day and that he hadn't seen or heard anything because he was watching a movie on his iPhone. He lived in the shed behind his parents' trailer in the same trailer park. Detectives from Nashville Metro continued to process the scene. Patricia had said she opened the front door with her key, and the door didn't appear to have been jimmied or forced open. They made their way to Patricia's bathroom. Detective Curtis Halfley recalled seeing a piece of the window pane in the sink and wondering how it could have gotten there.
The first thing that I saw was the pane of glass in the sink. So I saw the pane of glass in the sink. I was like, well, where could that come from? So my attention immediately went to the window, and I saw the ripped curtains that were there. And then in front of the window, I see shelving and stuff that's knocked over. And what you can't see in this picture, which I imagine she's going to get to, is right below here is the toilet. And the shelving is actually laying on the toilet. The curtain being flipped up like that is not the way the curtains in my house are. So my first thought was, wow, this is potentially the window that our perpetrator exited through.
It allowed law enforcement and their crime scene techs a place to focus their DNA and fiber searches beyond Joanna and her bedroom. They were certain this was how the offender had gotten into the home, but it wouldn't have been an easy entry, which was clear from the ripped curtain and wrecked shelving. The other reason? It was 6 feet above the ground and not the largest window. An offender would need a ladder to be able to enter. But Detective Halfley did have another observation when he went outside.
There looked to be some pry marks on the back of the window, some little indentations on the bottom of the windowsill, both on the left and right side, and they seem to be about in the same space either way, on each side.
Did you make any other pertinent observations while you were there at that scene?
I believe there was a chair outside that might have been being used for the crime scene tape was running through on that area out there. Do
you have any idea where that chair originally came from?
I do not. I remember there being some talk about finding out where that came from, maybe from the homeowners or whatnot, to see if that was, is that something that's been out there? Is that a step that was used to get up? And talking with the officers who initially responded, who used it to put the crime scene tape on, well, where'd you get that? But I don't know the answer to that.
Like with most crime scenes, the neighbors quickly became curious. One of those neighbors was the most recent grass cutter, Roy Coons Jr. According to Detective Brittany Sampson, Coons Jr. wasn't just curious, he lingered.
Just that he kept lingering around the area. It was abnormal to me, so I wanted to go talk to him about it. Maybe he had information to share. At the time, I wasn't sure.
Was anybody else at the scene who was at the trailer park lingering in the same manner as Mr. Coons?
No, everybody was pretty confused, but for the most part, people went back into their houses. They may have stood outside the crime scene tape for a minute because they were wondering what was going on. We were out there for quite a long time.
Did Mr. Coons ask you any questions?
He approached myself and one of my sergeants and asked if everything was okay. I can't exactly tell you which time frame that was in, sometime in the beginning.
It made Detective Sampson suspicious, but they had to continue with the investigation. It was discovered that Patricia owned property in Greenbrier. The house on the property was inhabitable, but she still wanted it maintained, so she hired a yard person for there as well. Mr. Drexel covered that need, but Greenbrier was about a half hour away from Nashville, and according to Patricia, he had no idea where she lived. So far, their investigation was giving them few clues, but no real answers. Yet. In every investigation, law enforcement looks at those closest to the victim first. This case was no different. According to Patricia's testimony, her former husband, the children's father, didn't live with them after they had separated, but he often visited on Thursday afternoons.
Where was your husband living
¿Dónde estaba
in
viviendo?
August of 2017?
¿Dónde estaba su esposo viviendo en agosto del 2017?
No lo sé. Yo no sabía su dirección.
I don't know. I didn't know his address.
Had you been to that residence before?
¿Había estado en la residencia de él antes?
¿En mi casa?
In my house?
To your husband's house?
A la casa de su esposo había estado usted.
Yo nunca... Él vivió conmigo antes.
He lived with me before. La pregunta es, ¿tú habías ido alguna vez a la casa de él?
No.
No.
After you had separated?
Después de que se separaron.
No.
No.
Did your husband come visit the children there at the lot C2?
¿Su esposo venía a visitar a los niños ahí en el lote C2?
Sí.
Yes.
Did he come the same time every time, or was it random?
¿Él venía a la misma hora todas las veces, al mismo tiempo, o era así al azar nada más?
Él avisaba cuando venía.
He would let us know when he come.
Él avisaba que, si no recuerdo, él avisaba los jueves es cuando él decía que venía por la tarde.
If I remember correctly, it would be the Thursdays when he would call to say that he would come in the afternoon.
And Johanna was killed on Thursday.
Johanna la mataron un jueves.
Sí.
Yes.
At trial, defense attorney David Hopkins tried to admit additional testimony about the children's father.
Are you still separated from the father of your children?
¿Sigue estando separada del padre de los niños? Yes.
Was he involved in things that you didn't approve of?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. To your knowledge, had your husband been in a fight recently? Just before Johanna was killed?
Objection, Your Honor.
The jury was asked to leave, and in their absence, Hopkins was allowed to ask the questions he had hoped would lead to reasonable doubt. Patricia didn't know the answers.
Shortly before Johanna was killed, was your husband either in a fight or assaulted?
Poco tiempo antes de que Johanna había sido asesinada, ¿su esposo había estado en una pelea o había sido atacado en algún momento?
No lo sé.
I don't know.
Do you know whether your husband was having issues with any gang members?
¿Usted sabe si su esposo estaba teniendo problemas con algún miembro de pandilla? Not that I know of.
Investigators continued to talk to neighbors. One of those neighbors was Madge Green. Madge told the court how Roy Coons Jr. had done work on her home. She also told them how he had dropped by during the late afternoon of August 10th. She knew what time it was because Jeopardy was on. According to Madge, Coons Jr. was barefoot when he came to her door.
When you were in there getting ready and watching Jeopardy, did you have any visitors come?
Yes.
And who was your visitor?
Roy Jr.
And when Roy Jr. arrived, did he knock on your door?
Yes, ma'am.
And you opened the door?
Yes, ma'am.
And could you tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, about your conversation with him?
He wanted to tell me that he had been up there to do the caulking. And so we went out on the porch, and he showed me what he did up on top, that he got up on top and caulked it from the top. And then he showed me from the bottom that he had caulked it. And I said, well, it looks real good. I can't see the caulking. Yeah. And
had you noticed the caulking before that day when he pointed it out?
No.
Okay.
And so we stood there and talked for a few minutes and about how he'd done my porch, and we were going to do my patio. And so I went on in and got the money. We finished talking. I went in and got the money to pay him, and he left.
Do you know about, is there anything about that day to give you an idea about what time you were having your conversation with Mr. Coons Jr.?
It was probably about 5:05, 5:07 to probably about 5:20.
And is that an estimate just based on the fact you had the Jeopardy show on?
Yes, and they were finishing up Double Jeopardy.
When he left, it was finishing Double Jeopardy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coons Jr.'s visit was about an hour after Joanna had sent that last text to her mom. Madge was asked what he was wearing.
He had on some silky basketball shorts, that I call them. They're big and floppy, and a T-shirt with the leaves cut out.
Do you remember what type of footwear he had?
He was barefooted.
At the time, Madge said she didn't notice anything off about her encounter with him. She saw the police cars later that evening when she went to pick up her roommate from the bus stop. On the way home, she asked an officer if she should be worried. He told her no and to return home. The next day, Coons Jr., whom Madge called Little Ray, stopped by again. This time it was to tell her about what had happened on Lot C2, the Arteaga residence.
What did he tell you the night before?
About the the police coming up and questioning him and what,
Where he had been?
And where he had been. And so we just got to talking about, and he was saying, I was going to the park. So that's the timeline that we all thought.
Okay. And he said that he went to the park before he came to meet with you or after he came to meet with you?
After.
Did he say why he went to the park?
To walk his dog.
Police interviewed Coons Jr. again roughly a week after the murder. His story changed a little bit. He told investigators about how he went over to Madge's house. He calls her Joe. As always, I'll recap what he says after this clip.
I know I was in the shed pretty much the whole time until I came out to go to the mailbox. And then I came back out, sat around, smoked a cigarette, went back in, watched a movie on my phone. Then I went up to Joe's house. Well, her name ain't Joe. I can't remember what her name is. The lady that lived there before her name is Joe. She was a bit farm-headed lady that lived there, her and Cindy. And I stood up there and talked to her for maybe 30, 45 minutes.
Coons Jr. said he was at home watching a movie on his phone. He went outside to the mailbox at one point and then smoked a cigarette. Then he went over to Joe's house. He told detectives that he heard details about the crime, including the fact that she had been strangled from Joe, a.k.a. Madge. He told investigators her sister-in-law's husband worked for Nashville Metro. It was a detail prosecutors asked Madge about when she was on the stand.
Now, obviously, people speculate and things of that nature. Did you have your own speculations?
Yeah.
But had you ever received any information other from any source, police source, that she had been strangled and raped?
No.
And you conveyed no such information to Roy Coons Jr.?
No, ma'am.
The detectives asked Coons Jr. if he had gone to Joanna's home during the day. He said he may have picked up a piece of paper in the driveway, but didn't go to the door.
Did you knock on the door at all that day?
When asked how he found out that something had happened in the trailer park, he told the detectives he saw the police lights and went outside. The detectives also asked him why he had been lingering around the scene. He said he was confused and didn't know what was going on. No one would tell them anything.
We all came out, and the police officer, the barhead police officer, maybe he asked, she said it was just funny. He came out right after we got here. We live here. Not supposed to come out and see what's going on in our neighborhood. I was concerned. I didn't know what was going on. Steve came out, Carolyn and we all came out.
He said there were a few of them, neighbors, watching, and wanting to know what was going on. He detailed his interaction with Detective Sampson, how he gave her his information, as did the others. He called her a pretty police officer. The detectives asked him if he could think of why someone would commit a crime like this.
I really don't know that much to put an idea on what happened or what they had going on, or, if it was like the news said, if it was somebody attempted to go into the house and she, surprised them. But even then, still, that wouldn't make no sense. If somebody's looking at them to do something like that, why turn a burglary into a murder? I guess it's one of those things you just have to put yourself in that situation to find out. But, I know it's, the brutal and horrific. That's just something I couldn't imagine.
He said he didn't really know them, so didn't know what they had going on. If it was a burglary, he asked why it would have turned into a murder. He said he knows it was brutal and horrific, something he couldn't even imagine. The detectives also wanted to know what he thought should happen to the person who killed Joanna.
What do you think should happen to the person that hurt this little girl? Same thing. Whatever happened to her should happen to him. If it was that bad, I think they deserve the same thing. Anybody does anything to anybody like that. I think they should get the same thing.
He said the same thing. Whatever happened to her should happen to them. They asked him how many pairs of shoes he had. He said he used to have several, but he hadn't worn shoes much during that summer. The detectives also concentrated on the interactions he had had with Patricia and her children. They asked if he had been inside the trailer since they moved in. He said no. They asked how many times he'd been by the house. He said a few. They then wanted to know if there was any reason his DNA would be found on Joanna's body. He said he had spoken with the family and shaken their hands before, but other than that, no. He agreed to give them a DNA sample. Investigators tried to confirm his statement with Jocelyn Arteaga, Joanna's sister. She said that never happened. He had never shaken their hands. She said they would only ever see him when he was outside, when their mom would talk to him about mowing their lawn. Patricia told the jury about an encounter she had with Coons Jr. that had bothered her, roughly a month before Joanna was murdered. She said that Coons Jr. had come over to receive payment for cutting the grass. Initially, she tried to give him a $100 bill, but he said he didn't have change, so she left him at the door to go and get some. She said when she returned, she noticed he was watching her daughters.
So when I came back, his head was further into the door, more than normal.
Mi hija Jocelyn, Joanna y, si no recuerdo, Jocelyn estaban sentadas en el sillón.
My daughter Jocelyn, if I remember, Jocelyn and Joanna were sitting in the sofa.
Pude ver que las observaba.
I could see that he was watching them.
Pero para ese tiempo a mí me pareció una persona metiche, entrometida.
But at that time, I just saw him as a nosy person.
What did you do when you saw him staring at your
¿Qué hizo cuando usted vio que estaba mirando a sus niñas?
Tratando de no ser grosera, le cerré un poco la puerta.
Trying not to be rude, I closed a little bit the door.
Y le pagué.
And I paid him.
Even with what they were learning from Patricia and other witnesses, investigators needed direct evidence to place Coons Jr. at the scene, if he was really their guy. Then the DNA results came back, and Roy Coons Jr. was arrested and charged with premeditated first-degree murder and attempted rape of a child. Roy Coons Jr. went to trial in July 2019. In addition to Joanna's text messages about the man who cuts the yard, a large part of the prosecution's case was DNA evidence. They called DNA experts to the stand who testified that the DNA found on Joanna's body and on the bathroom windowsill was a match to Roy Coons Jr., although they were partial matches.
DNA matching Roy Coons Jr. is found in that trailer 4 times. 3 times on Joanna's body, and 1 time on the windowsill on the inside that we know Joanna's murderer used. Proof shows that Joanna's murderer came in through that windowsill because Patricia told you that it was not in that state when she left, with the torn curtain and the shelf knocked over.
But the defense pointed to 4 unknown male DNA profiles found at the scene and 3 other hits that had come back from CODIS.
The other part that the state's not wanting to talk about is the fact that we have 3 other known hits in CODIS to people's DNA that were in that trailer, one of which was on the bare skin of Johanna Arteaga. The left breast swab, it's in the evidence, you can look at it. They got a hit on someone named Jerry Claiborne. They also got a hit on 2 people, Billy Trapani, who's in prison, and another guy named Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, as far as the detective knew, was supposed to have been on probation somewhere. They couldn't locate him. Ms. Arteaga's mother said there was no reason for any 3 of those people to have been there. But yet, we can have Jerry Claiborne's DNA on Ms. Arteaga's bare skin with no explanation of how she got in that trailer or what she was doing there. But yet, the man who did work in that trailer for nearly 15 years, who had a microscopic amount of DNA partially matching him on her body, is supposed to be the killer in this case. But just ignore the fact that 3 other people's DNA is there.
He told the jury that there was a perfectly good explanation for Roy Coons Jr.'s DNA to have been present in the trailer. He had done work in the trailer before Patricia and the children moved in. The defense's only witness in the case was Roy Coons Sr., Coons Jr.'s father. He told the jury about all the work he and his son did on that trailer with the previous owners.
You said that a man named David Love had lived there?
Yes.
And I believe you said he had been a friend of yours?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not Mr. Coons did any kind of work inside of that trailer for Mr. Love?
Judge, I would just ask if we could have him testify from personal knowledge, not what was told to him by Mr. Coons Jr.
What, if any, work did you see Mr. Coons doing down in Lot C2?
Inside the trailer, outside, or what?
Let's start with inside.
Okay. He replaced the faucets in the front bathroom. He had to take a panel off inside the closet to get in there to it. That's showing where that got in there at.
Okay. You say front bathroom?
Yeah, when you go in the door to the right.
Okay. And did you actually see him do that work?
Yeah.
Okay. What other work, if any, did you see him do?
Stretch the carpet.
The defense also argued that the DNA could have even come from a paternal relative, not even from Roy Coons Jr. at all. With Roy Coons Sr. on the stand, the prosecution asked him about the living male relatives who could have interacted with Johanna.
Did you ever touch Johanna Ortega?
No.
Had you ever spoken to Johanna Ortega?
No.
Was that a no?
No.
All right. Now, you were at work with your wife on August 10th of 2017 up until, what, about 11:30 that night?
11 o'clock.
Okay. And when you got there, police were still on the scene, correct?
Yes.
And when you go to work, you have to clock in. There's like a record of when you and your wife are at work, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And you told the detectives about that so they could verify, correct?
Yes.
Now, all of your brothers are deceased, correct?
Yes.
And in August of 2017, all of your brothers were deceased, correct?
Yes.
He said he has male nephews who were all in jail at the time of the murder, and Coons Jr.'s 2 sons were living elsewhere. Coons Sr. was also asked why his son had moved out of the trailer park 2 to 3 weeks after his interview with police. He said the management of the trailer park had asked him to move out after the murder. However, 2 days earlier in court, the manager of Hillview Acres, Anthony Hinton, said that never happened. Not only that, he had never even talked to Roy Coons Jr. before at all.
Did you know Roy Coons Jr.?
No.
Had you ever met him?
No.
Did you know he was living at that location?
No.
Did you ever tell Roy Coons Sr. that Roy Coons Jr. needed to move out because he was not on the lease?
No, because I wasn't aware.
Right. Did you ever tell, I know it's a little repetitive, but did you ever tell Roy Coons Jr. that he needed to move out?
No.
After Coons Jr. moved out of the trailer park, he spent some of his time at a homeless camp. There, he spoke with a man named Moses. Moses testified that Coons Jr. stayed with him in his tent and that they spent a lot of time together. He said at one point, Coons Jr. asked, quote, "If I ever killed anyone, do you think God would forgive me?" It was a question Moses said he asked at least 3 times a day. Moses' girlfriend, Alexandra, was present for one of these conversations. She told the jury about driving in a car with Moses and Coons Jr., whom she called Ray.
Did Ray have unusual conversations or conversations with you about God?
Well, I did hear him ask if God would forgive someone for killing someone.
And do you know who all was around when he asked that question?
Just me and Moses.
Just you and Moses? Did you answer him or did Moses answer him?
I did.
And what did you tell him?
I said, yes, God would forgive you for your sins.
Alexandra also told the court that Coons Jr. wanted to leave town and wanted them to go too.
Were you ever present to hear him make any statements regarding California?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you share what those conversations or what those statements were about California?
He just asked if we would go with him, and he was excited about it.
He asked you to go to California with him? And what was your response?
No.
According to Moses, there was another conversation. Coons Jr. asked Moses if he had ever killed someone. Then Coons Jr. said he had. He added, "That shit sticks with you." Once Roy Coons Sr. was done testifying on the last day of the trial, closing arguments began. Assistant District Attorney Jeff George laid out all the reasons why they believed Roy Coons Jr. was the killer. Starting with his location. He lived just 2 doors down from Patricia and her children. He was in the trailer park all day that day and knew the family because he had cut the grass.
Remember, we're looking at everything all together, not just one little thing. And sometimes little things that don't mean much alone mean a lot in light of all the other proof. Well, it's significant that the defendant lives so close by this trailer that he's the opportunity and proximity, that he knows that there's a master bathroom window on that trailer that's blocked by a wooded tree line, and that's important.
The prosecutor pointed out that he had also allegedly confessed to Moses.
He asked Moses Okoth multiple times, do you think someone would be forgiven by God if they killed someone? And Alexandra Hemingway corroborates that because she heard him asking that. And then there's the moment when he calls Moses over to his tent and he confesses to Moses Okoth that he has killed someone. And he says, that shit really sticks with you. Remember, this is just in September, 5 or so weeks after this murder occurred.
He asked the jury to use their common sense.
You might remember in jury selection, General Anderson asked, well, does everybody have common sense? And everybody kind of chuckled. But now, after sitting through a week of this trial, you might see why that's actually a good question. It's because sometimes in trials like this, you might wonder, well, am I allowed to apply my common sense? Well, that's why this instruction is going to be in your jury instructions that you get from Judge Watkins. And it says, you should consider all the evidence in the light of your own observations and experiences in life. Take your common sense into that jury deliberation room with you. I just want to leave you with one last point, because we talked a lot about Roy Coons. We talked a lot about what Roy Coons said, what he did 2.5 years ago, where he's been, what he said to the detectives, et cetera, et cetera. But don't forget the other person that this trial is about. It's about Joanna. It's about what happened to her on that Thursday in that trailer. Obviously, she's not here anymore, so she can't come in here and sit on that stand and testify about what happened to her. But you did get to hear some of her words in this trial this week. And it's this. She sent these messages in August of 2017, almost 2 years ago. And this is not just some data. This is actually the picture. This is the screenshot that her iPad took when she closed out of Google Hangouts for the last time shortly before she was killed. From August of 2017 to this courtroom this week in July of 2019, you are looking at one of the last images that she ever looked at. This is the last time she ever talked to her mom. And she is identifying who the man is who came to her trailer that day.
When defense attorney David Hopkins first addressed the jury in closing arguments, he told them Roy Coons Jr. was an innocent man.
You didn't hear about any fingerprints belonging to Mr. Coons anywhere in that location. We know from the experts that fingerprint evidence typically doesn't last very long. That's why they take the trouble to try to collect it immediately. There was no fingerprint evidence linking Mr. Coons to this crime. They checked the windows, they checked the doorways, they checked everywhere they could think, and they didn't find any of that. There were no eyewitnesses in this case who said Mr. Coons was anywhere around that location of C2 on the day that this happened. We heard a lot of evidence in this case about potential shoe prints. Well, they searched Mr. Coons' home, they searched his car. They didn't find a single shoe that matched this alleged shoe print that was on Miss Ortega's body. Again, things you didn't hear about.
He said the detectives had tunnel vision, despite the fact that there were other people who could have been responsible.
And we heard in this case that there were 3 men who cut the grass. Mr. Coons, Mr. Hinton, and this gentleman named Mr. Drexel. Here's something we didn't hear about in this case. Where was Mr. Drexel during the time that they think that Miss Ortega was killed? And I say I think because Dr. Lee, the expert medical examiner, said we don't know what time she died. There's a big assumption in this case. Again, the state's asking you to assume that she was killed sometime around right after this last text message was sent. We don't know that. And there's no expert proof that says that she was. She could have died at 4:30. She could have died at 5 o'clock. She could have died at 5:30. She could have been killed at 6:15 just before her mother arrived home. We don't know. But Mr. Drexel cut the grass. We know from his cell tower records that before the time they think she was killed and sometime after the time they think she was killed, his cell phone was pinging a tower not more than 8 or 10 miles away. The police went to interview him one time, was able to do so, never followed up with him again. Now, we heard in this case about DNA, and I don't want to jump around too much, but we heard that there was at least 2, and maybe as many as 4 or 5 unknown males' DNA strands in that home. Wouldn't it have been interesting to know if Mr. Drexel's DNA matched any of those strains, but they didn't get it?
He admitted his client could be viewed as strange, but strange isn't a crime, he said.
An absence of something is not proof of anything. It's just an absence of proof. Just like the absence of proof against Mr. Coons. Don't forget, Mr. Coons sits here presumed innocent. Don't forget that proof beyond a reasonable doubt is not based on speculation. It's not based on guessing. Don't ignore their own scientific evidence that other people unaccounted for, one of whom was on probation, was in that trailer at some point, or his DNA sure was. And don't let them rest on, well, we did our best. We can't tell you who for sure. Let's point on Mr. Coons. He seemed a little strange. It's not a crime to be strange or to be different, or to live partially in a shed behind your parents' house.
In her rebuttal argument, Assistant District Attorney Pam Anderson said that because Coons Jr. insisted on his innocence, there is no first-hand account of Joanna's murder. She conceded that there are maybes in this case.
And you're going to hear me say maybes. And yes, there are maybes. And yes, there are guesses. Just like we talked about in jury selection. That's not reasonable doubt. Just like we don't have to prove the color of a car or the number of drinks that someone has in a DUI.
Anderson also addressed the other people who could have committed the crime.
Let's talk about Mr. Drexel first. Patricia Velasquez told you he didn't know where she lived in Nashville. He had never been to her home. So did Mr. Drexel just decide out of the blue to somehow have located where they live, to rush down there as a stranger, go crawling through a trailer park, know where they live, carry his ladder with him, go in the back, climb up, and get away, and nobody noticed a strange car or a strange person? Would Joanna have even known that he cut their grass? So she saw the man who cut the grass outside of her home.
As for the other CODIS hits, she said those hits were inconclusive and didn't mean that those people had actually been present in the home.
Now, CODIS hits. They're hits. They're not identifications. Remember we talked about that? All CODIS is it takes whatever profile you have, however partial that might be, and runs through it a gigantic database to say, well, here's one that's got that allele, here's one that's got that allele, here's one that's got that allele that has these alleles. You heard it was only for investigative purposes. Mr. Hopkins has gotten up here and has told you that those three people, Trevini, Williams, and Jerry, whatever her last name, that they were all matched. No, they weren't. They just happened to share DNA at certain locations. And it can't be used for legal purposes. It's an investigative tool. They have never been identified.
Anderson then showed the jury a drawing from Joanna's diary. It was a picture of her and her mother.
But in this picture is a drawing I submit of how Joanna visualized herself and how she visualized her mother, Patricia Velasquez. You can see the beauty in both of them. And you can, I submit, see the love and the closeness of that relationship. And maybe it's prophetic, but you can see the tear dropping from her mother's eyes. This relationship was such that Johanna, when she was scared, she reached out to the person that she knew to protect her. And she texted, and she called, and she texted, and then all activity on that iPad ceased.
Afterwards, the jury was sent away for deliberation. 3 hours later, they had their verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant Ronald Don Coons Jr. in count 1, guilty of second-degree murder.
Roy Coons Jr. cried as the verdict was read. In September of 2019, he received his first sentence for the murder of Joanna Arteaga, life in prison. His final sentence was given on January 22, 2020. This was for attempted rape of a child. It was at this hearing Roy Coons Jr. spoke to the court. He said, in part, "I'm not a monster and I'm no murderer. I can't apologize for a crime I didn't commit. But I will say I'm sorry for your loss. I'm innocent of this crime. I didn't burglarize their home. I didn't invade their home. I didn't attempt the sexual assault of Ms. Joanna. And I didn't murder Joanna." He then pointed the finger at a nameless person. He referred to the man merely as the person who lived on Lot C1 at the time Joanna was murdered. According to his statement, this person's DNA was also found at the scene and on the window. He claimed the person disappeared the same day of the murder. Assistant District Attorney Pam Anderson spoke when he was done. She told the court that Coons Jr. had over 30 misdemeanors and was on probation at the time of the murder. She said he was the very definition of a dangerous offender. Coons Jr. was sentenced to an additional 25 years. As of this recording, he still maintains he did not kill Joanna Arteaga. And that's all for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Do you agree with the verdict? Do you think the right man was convicted? Let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram @CourtJunkie, by tweeting me @CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing me at podcast@CourtJunkie.com. This episode was written and researched by Polly Katowski with Law and Crime. You can follow her on Twitter and Instagram at Polly Katowski. And if you'd like to hear these episodes without the ads and hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes, check out my Patreon options at courtjunkie.com/support. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/courtjunkie. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.